Hi, my name is Jeff Rhodes and welcome to another video about SharePoint and Office 365. In this video, we're going to talk about using JavaScript and specifically the jQuery library to change colors and adjust the color and the styles of items based on the current date. So we'll come back to that. It's based on a chapter in my Creating Business Applications with Office 365 book. So I encourage you to get that. That actually comes from this Customizing Date Displays with jQuery is where this comes from. And the source code that I'll be doing today is part of that if you get the book. So if you want to know more about the book, I'll just click the link for Amazon and you can get it there and at other retailers, and it's doing pretty well. You can check it right now. It's like it's number 13 in SharePoint guides for the paperback, and for the Kindle edition number 12. So right, 12 and 13 on that. So I encourage you to check that out and give some reviews, and then love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel where you've gotten this from. So all right, let's get started. So this came from a task when I was at the Air Force Academy where one of our customers, they use these task kind of lists quite a bit for trackers and so forth. And they had some dates and wanted them to turn red if it was past due, which you'll see the task list actually does some of that automatically. It'll basically do it with the one date and not the other one. But then we wanted to turn kind of a yellow or orange if it's within a certain amount of time, in this case 7 days. So you see, this is the one I used in the book, so it's got some old dates in it, but I just put a new one in. So you can see that it's due the 31st of January, but the overall suspense is not passed, so it's a normal color. So the way we do that is that we first set up our site so that it can use content editors, and I've got a separate video on that. And then we put our code, in this case our styles and our JavaScript code, into a text file, put that text file up into a document library, and then add that content editor to inject that code right into our page. So what I'm going to do is we're going to build this from scratch, but I'm going to edit this page because it's already got this JavaScript code in there, and I'm just going to change the name of it so it doesn't work anymore, so we can go back to where it is. So you can see I've got a document library called code library here where I put the file, and it's just a text file, and if I just change the name, that'll break it, and then we'll go back to the way it was. So the one thing I do is I like to put you see where it says JavaScript code do not delete. Notice how that shows up in author mode when we're editing the page so that they know it's there, but it doesn't show up to the user. And we do that by changing this Chrome type to none. So you've seen me in a few videos do that already. I love that technique. So I'll just hit OK. And you see when I stop editing, now we go back to the default behavior. So notice the date for the task did already turn red, but notice now our suspense date went back. And of course we got rid of this amber color here. So that's what we're going to go on. So let's jump into how do we set that up, because that's the main part. And actually, how do we figure out what we're going to do? So actually, let's start with that one, because you get to this and you're like, okay, it doesn't work by default. How can I figure out how to change it? And if we're thinking jQuery and JavaScript, it comes down to, how do I come up with the selector? How do I find these dates, compare it to the current date, and change the style based on it? So that's where the developer tools come in really handy. So I'm going to hit the F12 key here and bring up our Chrome developer tools. You can do this in any browser. And I'll go over to Elements and I'll click this button here to select our items. So notice how I select that one. Oops, I kind of lost it. Let's try it again. There you go. And so you can see it's a TD, a table column, and we've got this class, and you've got this the span, which that's how they put the fact that it's late in there, the title, but this class has the date, and that's what we're really trying to get our hands on. And so the first thing we really have to do, we're going to go through and we want to know which number column it is, so we can really scroll up. Here's the row, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you really need to do it this way, because notice like the ellipses here were its own column. And then notice then the one that we're going to want is 9. So we really want the 8th column and the 9th column is what we're going to do. All right, so we'll come back to these developer tools. Now I have the text file already, but I'm going to break it up and I'm going to show you how we kind of set this up. And actually, I'd already done this. Let me close these two so you can see it from scratch. But what I like to do is, you're kind of guessing, is I like to use Visual Studio. So I'll come here and I'll say new file. And again, I'm going to put them all into a text file, but it's easier if we format, if we tell it what kind. So I'm going to say it's a style sheet, get rid of that. And then I'll go back to our thing. You see our technique is, since we're going to inject it into the page, we put our style tags, but I'm just going to grab this part, and it just allows us to format it and just see that it's right. So see how it's all color coded. Now let's talk styles if you haven't done a lot of cascading style sheets. The dot here means that it's a class. So for this to work, we'll have to have a class equals alert, the class equals overdue, and then what we're going to do here is override the error one as well. And the MS is for Microsoft, so that's a built-in class that we do. And then the main thing we're doing is changing the color. So usually you'll put in a hex, even though you can put like red or something, but I usually like to have a little more control. So to do that, you do something like Photoshop, or I use Snagit a lot, so you can use the Snagit editor, which I have here, and just come in there and paste in that, and you kind of see, okay, that's our amber kind. And you could, if you wanted to, just pick a different color, and you can just grab that hex code and put it into your class. And then, as you might guess, the other one is a type of red. And it's, so we can paste that in and tab and see it's a red kind of in here. But again, we could have changed it to something else. You can even come in here, make it purple or whatever. So that's how that works. And then we're just changing the weight to bold, just to kind of make it emphasize. The other way that you could do is you could even do something like a font. Whoops. Notice I get IntelliSense here, which is another reason to do it in Visual Studio. So I could do a font size. I can even do something, it gives me some choices, but I'll usually do a percent, 150% or something like that. So I won't do it there, but that's how you set up the class or the styles part. And then let's talk JavaScript. Okay, so again, if we go in and make a JavaScript file to help us get our syntax right, and all, helps us make sure we don't have any hanging brackets and that kind of thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a link into the jQuery library, and we'll talk more about that. And then we're going to, since it's all being injected into the page, we'll have to put script tags in. But we don't need to copy that, because since I'm using a JS file here, it will do it for me. Okay, so notice how it's all color-coded. And we'll show this in the debugger a little bit better, but let's talk about the code. So these are really our global variables, they're page level variables, so they can be used anyway. So we're going to use the today variable to figure out today's date. So new date will give us the current date and time right now. And then I'm going to just store as really a constant how many days until we show alert. So we're going to say if within 7 days of that date, we're going to change it to our alert class. But if I want it within 30 days, I just change that number to 30. Now this one gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, this process M is a function that SharePoint itself calls when it reloads the page. And this is a little tricky. So you'll see I'm going to call this find table elements both places. This is, you see that in some of my other videos. The dollar, then just call the function like that. So it's a shortcut for document.ready, and it basically says right when the page is completely loaded, once SharePoint or any other kind of ASP.NET page or whatever has loaded everything in there and it's ready to display in the browser, we call that function. Okay, but if we go back to our page now, the task list is a little different, because if I reload this, you'll see it's got these, groupings and so forth. And what happens is the document.ready will get it to this, but it won't fire again when we start expanding these different areas. That's this process INM instead. Okay, so we're basically putting a variable equal to that function here, and then we're defining a new function. So we're basically going to say, okay, we're going to do the existing function, and then we're also going to call our find table elements and then return the results, because that's what it wants back. So we're going to do its normal thing, but along the way we're going to find the table elements, and that's how it will keep working even as we keep expanding different parts. So that's a pretty key point there. All right, so let's go into this find table elements that we're calling basically over and over, both when we load the page and then again every time we expand it. So this part here is our selector. Okay, so we've seen different ones. If we had like an ID, we would put a pound symbol in here, but these, since it doesn't have an ID, these are our HTML type. So we're saying, okay, find me a table, and then find me the row, and then find me the column, find me the nth child, 8th. So this is the 8th one of those TD or column things. That's why we had to count them up. You'll notice down here we do the same thing again for the 9th. So we're going to do it as well. So it'll keep calling this, and then it'll go searching for the 8th one. And then we say dot each. So for each one of those that it finds, so this could have 100, 1,000 rows, and it'll just call this function for each one. And then we're going to define a variable, the cell ID, and then we use the very important variable this. So this is the HTML object, the table column. We're going to do the selector on it, which turns it into a jQuery object. And we're going to name it cell ID. And then we're going to call a function, update date display, and pass in that jQuery object. Again, we'll see this in the debugger in a minute. Actually, I don't need this guy pinned down here. Give us a little more space. And then finally, we're going to have this function, the update date display. So now, since cell ID is a jQuery object, we can call jQuery methods on it. So we're going to have a variable we're calling date text, which is the text of the cell. Okay, and that's going to be, if we go back to our page, that's going to be 4/3/2018, 4/20/2018, get called again 1/31/2020, and so forth. So each 8th and 9th cell, we're going to grab the text for it. Okay, and we're going to check to make sure it's not equal to blank or to quote. And then we're going to make a new date object out of that text. So this is just text 4/18/2018 or whatever that number was, okay? And we'll make a date variable out of it. And then we're going to call another function, dateDiff, where we're going to find how many days is it difference between that date and the today function that we did before. So let's jump up to that. Okay, and a couple ways to do it. The way I like to do when I'm working with dates is I like to call their getTime method. And that gives us the number of seconds since 1970 or something like that in this case. But it's basically the representation of that date in seconds or milliseconds, and it doesn't really matter. I think it's milliseconds because of this 1,000 here. And then we subtract the second date from the first date, and then we do some math on it. So we divide by 24 to get the days, 60 to get the minutes, seconds, and then the milliseconds. So that's how we know it errors. And that'll give us the number of days that is different. So if it's less than -1, which basically you can see I've got a comment here, and we do the -1 because of midnight dates, and so forth. So that says we're going to go ahead and call the add class method, again, the jQuery method, overdue. So this matches up, by the way. Whoops, go back to Visual Studio, to there's where I wanted to go. So that gives us this overdue class. And so we're going to put that on there, and that's going to turn it red. Whoops, always keep on Alt-Tab. Let's go back over here. Else, then we do the math. Okay, if the num days is less than num days to show alert, which we've got as 7, then we're going to add the alert class on there. And that's pretty much it. All right, so what do? We put all that into a text file, which is where I got it from, so it's already there. Make sure, like I said, we put the script tags in, and we have a link to the jQuery library, so we can call our jQuery methods. We could do 2 files, but I just put the style in there as well. And we can try it out. So let's go back. Quickest way for us to do that is I can go back and edit the page. Now, if I were starting from scratch, what I would do is insert and I'm not actually seeing it. Oh, I would say add web part here. So I won't do it, but I would add web part, go to media and content, and get that content editor is how you got it in the first place. But I already have it, so then I can just edit it. And I'm just going to fix the link. So I didn't show you the uploading it to the document library, but I'll show you that in a minute. So I say OK. And stop editing. So let me just go, I'll duplicate this tab real quick. Let me go show you the content, the library, just so you see how that looks. So you notice I have a document library called Code Library, and here's all my different codes, but this is the one that we did, the color dates based on suspense text. So I would just upload it there, and then what I like to do is you can copy the link to get the name, or you can even just go here, copy that URL and the name of the file, and make sure that's what's showing up in the in the path that we put in the content editor. All right, so let's go see it. Sometimes it's easier if we watch it in the debugger. So we'll go hit F12 again. In this case, go to Sources, go to the page itself. And what I like to do is take something that I know is unlikely to be in there on its own. So I'm going to copy Find Table Elements, and that will help us because this is a big, long page. I'm going to make this a little bit longer. Oh, and actually, I remembered my breakpoints from before, so that's kind of funny. Let me show you how you found it. So I can say Find Table Elements, and it takes me to the right spot. So notice there's our, you can't really see the style I got put over here, but here's our classes. There's our jQuery script. Here's our script and all these things on there. So let's see, I'll run it here, run it there again. Yeah, we'll just do it in each one of those, and then I'll take some of these off so that we can not have to see them over and over. But let's reload the page. And then we'll hit it. So see how that's the document ready one. So that gets done first. And then I'm going to take that off. Actually, it should be inside there. Is probably better there. And then notice now the process I am in has done it. So we're calling it again. And it keeps called several different times. Now we're in Find Table Elements. So let me get out of the call stack over here. We can see it on the local is our variable. So it's can't really tell that much about it, but one way when you're looking at jQuery objects, if it's got a length greater than 0, you know it's like a real object. We can also roll over on this, and you can see it's got a cell style and gives you some stuff about it, and it gives you some of the properties if we wanted to go look at it. So now it's going to call update date display, and then I've got it stop. But notice how we got our date text. Remember how we did it? So that's the 4/3/2018, and then I can just go one line at a time. So now this is a date. See how it's got GMT minus 6 hours behind, so that's mountain time. So it turned that into an actual date object. Now let's jump inside the date diff. So notice I'm passing in that date, and then this is today's date. Okay, and then I can go down one, and then that's the number of milliseconds between the dates. And then the number of days, 662 days back to 2018. Okay, so that was a bit ago, since it's 2020 now. So I'm going to add the class overdue. Let's put one in so that if I get one where it's we get the alert. So we'll just keep going. There was the 9th. Let me get that. Process IMN again. We don't need that. Turn off some of these breakpoints so that we don't get them again. All right, so there's another one. Now it's within 5 days, and the number of days to show alert is 7. So we're going to add the alert class. Turn that off. Keep going. Get rid of our breakpoints for the rest. All right, and again, the one that had that alert class is this one, and you see these two both had the overdue class. Oh, one more thing. So let's go back there. It's kind of cool because you can see what happened if you look at let's go back to the elements. If we go back and check it out. So let's click on that and go to that. So see what happened. Here's our TD, and notice that it's got the original style already, and it's got the overdue. And remember how I changed the error? Because notice how it puts this error on there, and that actually can take precedence. So the error that it put on its own, I make it the same color, because basically we were getting like one red for this date over here and another red for that date because that's why I changed that error class. That's this guy. That's why this one went and changed it to the same red, because Microsoft used a slightly different red, and you kind of see one's one color red, one's another one. Why is it? And it was just because it had the built-in function for one of the things and not for the other. And then if we do that same thing and go to this alert one, same thing. So we've got this alert class added on to everything else, and that's how we change it. And you can even, if you wanted to go in, you could actually change this to, gray or whatever. See how it changed it there, so we could play with the class and see. So, all right, well, not as long as some of my videos, so that's probably a good thing. So hope that was useful to you. And again, sign up for my YouTube channel and take a look at the book, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.